What if I told you that simply observing something can change it? Not just in the way you perceive it, but in actual reality. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, great. Another YouTube video promising to unlock the secrets of the universe. Stay with me, because this one is backed by actual science. Quantum physics, no less. And, yep, I promise this will make more sense than your last attempt at assembling IKEA furniture. In the last two videos, which I'll link somewhere here, we explored how perception shapes our experience, and everything in the universe is deeply connected. We saw how the mind can create real physical sensations, like how just imagining a lemon made your mouth water. It is now. And we even dabbled in quantum entanglement, where particles remain mysteriously linked across space and time, like the cosmic version of the One Ring from The Lord and the Rings. But today, we're taking a step further. We're diving into something that will change everything you think you know about reality. Because it turns out simply looking at something can change it. Seriously. And I know it sounds like something straight out of the Matrix. But this isn't sci-fi. This is quantum physics. This is the observer effect. And before you think, oh, here we go, another thoughts become things lecture, let me remind you of something the Stoics figured out 1,000 years ago or more. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking," which is just a classier way of saying your focus shapes your reality, or, if you prefer, life is what you make it. Except, this time, science is backing it up. Yep, science. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand why this is true, but you'll actually see it happening in your own life. So, shall we? Oh, hold on. Before we get stuck in, it's time for mosquitoes of this time of year for mosquitoes. Yeah, before we get stuck in, if you find yourself nodding along, mildly entertained, or even just thinking, well, this is better than doom scrolling Twitter or that TikTok stuff, do us a favour, hit the like, subscribe, and maybe even tap that notification bell thing. It tells the almighty YouTube algorithm that this video isn't complete nonsense. Plus, it keeps me motivated to keep making these, and I'm sure you're enjoying them. And for those who really want to support the channel, I've got one of those buy me a coffee things. The link is below. And I'm happy to report that one heroic individual by the name of Mr. Teabag has already bought me a coffee. That made me so happy. That's right, Mr. Teabag, you absolute legend. You saw an opportunity to support independent creators and you took it. A true pioneer, a scholar, a gentleman, and a very generous person with a fantastic username. So, if you too would like to be immortalized in caffeine-fueled gratitude, the link's down below. No pressure, but also a little bit of pressure. Alright, where was I? You know that feeling when you're trying to act natural, but someone's watching you, and suddenly you forget how to walk like a normal human? Well, it turns out the entire universe has the exact same problem. This isn't just some weird social anxiety thing. It's actually a fundamental truth about reality itself. Welcome to the world of quantum physics, where simply looking at something can change how it behaves. This is odd, isn't it? It's gonna be a long one, this. Bear with me. To understand this, we need to go back to one of the most bizarre and mind-bending experiments in history. The Double-Slit Experiment, first conducted by my hero from my university days of studying quantum physics and all sorts of other interesting things. It was first conducted by that British scientist Thomas Young. He had some interesting ways to discover how the pupil works as well. We won't go into that. Anyway, yep, in 1801 he made this little test which was done to prove that light behaves like a wave, and it did. But over a century later, when scientists decided to try it again with single particles, things got really weird. Here's how it works. Imagine we fired tiny particles, like electrons or photons, at a barrier with two slits. If the particles were tiny marbles, you'd expect them to just go through one slit or the other, right? Yeah. And when no one was observing them, that's not what happened. Instead of behaving like solid objects, those particles acted like waves, passing through both slits at the same time, basically creating what's called an interference pattern. And on the screen behind, they acted like ripples in water. It was if they couldn't decide on a single path and chose all of them at once. And if that was not crazy enough, here's where it's properly insane. The moment the scientist placed a measuring device to observe which slit each particle was going through, everything changed. The interference pattern disappeared, and the particles started behaving like tiny solid objects again, going through only one slit, just like you'd expect. This is weird. It's as if the particles knew they were being watched and decided to stop being weird. Let that sink in for a bit. Odd, huh? So, just watching something changed its behaviour. And before you say, well, that's just quantum mechanics being weird, think about what this actually implies. If the fundamental building blocks of everything, atoms, particles, the very stuff that makes up reality, behave differently when being observed, then what does that say about us? Enter Schrodinger's cat, one of the most famous thought experiments in physics. You might have heard about it in that program, The Big Bang Theory, or if you're really cultured, in a late night Wikipedia rabbit hole. The idea? Simple. Imagine a cat inside a box, which in that box has a 50-50, has a device which has a 50-50 chance of killing it. Until you open the box to check, the cat is both dead and alive at the same time. Only when you observe it does reality decide which state it will be in. Ridiculous. Yeah. But mathematically, at a quantum level, that's how reality seems to work. So now we have a situation where particles don't have a definite state until they're observed, and reality doesn't seem to choose an outcome until someone looks at it. Brilliant, huh? Science has basically told us we live in a universe that acts suspiciously like a video game, rendering only when someone's watching. If you've ever suspected you're in a simulation, this isn't helping. Okay, so all of this is happening at the quantum level. But does it actually mean anything for your life? Well, that does depend. If observation changes reality at the smallest level, what happens when we apply that to our thoughts, intentions and focus. Ever notice how when you start thinking about a certain type of car, suddenly you see it everywhere? Or, some mud, or how people who constantly expect bad things to happen seem to experience more of them. What if, just like that double-slit experiment, your focus is shaping your reality? This links to everything from law of attraction to Stoic philosophy. The Stoics, for example, believed that perception is everything. Marcus Aurelius himself said, "The happiness to your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." And honestly, the guy had a point. Because if quantum physics is right, then the way you observe your life literally changes it. No pressure, huh? Now that you've seen how observation can change the way reality behaves, let's explore a more everyday example of how your brain filters the world. It's called the red car effect, and it shows just how much your focus can shape what you experience and how you can use it to your advantage. Think about it. Ever decided to buy a red car and suddenly seeing red cars everywhere? Or learned a new word and now you hear it constantly? Nope. The universe isn't conspiring to mess with your head. It's just your brain playing one of the little tricks on you. This is called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, or more simply, the red car effect. And once you understand it, you can use it to completely change how you experience life. Your brain is bombarded with millions of bits of information every second. But obviously, if you try to process all of that at once, you'd be curled up in the corner, rocking back and forth. Probably already. So, your brain has a built-in bouncer called the Reticular Activating System, the RAS. Its job to decide what gets in and what gets ignored. And here's the kicker. It only lets in what you've told is important. Before you wanted a red car, your brain ignored them. But now, your RAS is actively looking for red cars. And this applies to everything. If you're focused on problems, you'll see more problems. If you're focused on opportunities, you'll start seeing doors open. Your brain doesn't just react to reality, it creates the reality you experience. Still not convinced? Alright, let me hit you with something wild. There was once a tribe that had no word for stutter. And get this, nobody in the tribe stuttered. True story this, you know. But then, once they were introduced to the concept of stuttering, suddenly cases of it started appearing. This is not just a weird coincidence, it's proof that language and belief can shape our reality. If something doesn't exist in your mental framework, you don't experience it the same way. And that's why limiting beliefs are so dangerous. Because if you don't believe something is possible, your brain won't even look for ways to make it happen. Simple. Alright, so we've established that your brain is basically Google, except it only gives you results based on what you tell it to focus on. And this is why I like Asksumations so much and make videos about them every day, or almost every day. Instead of saying things like, I'll never be successful, try asking, why am I always finding new opportunities? The moment you do that, your brain has to start looking for proof. See, your RAS isn't just a filter, it's a search engine. Feed it the right questions and it will show you a very different world. Try it. In fact, here's a challenge for you. For the next 24 hours, think about red cars. Just casually notice them. And while you're at it, try asking yourself something like, why am I so good at spotting new opportunities? Or, why do things always work out for me? Who knows? You might just trick your brain into making life a bit easier. Okay, we've established that your brain is like a Google search engine on steroids. But what if I told you that every thought you have isn't just changing how you see the world, it's physically rewiring your brain. It's not some woo-woo stuff, not that like manifest your dreams with positive vibes nonsense. This is hard science. Your brain is changing all the time, whether you like it or not. Do you know the best bit? You could decide how it changes. Yeah, you've got a choice in this, dude. This is called neuroplasticity. It's the reason why London taxi drivers who memorize the most complex city map on earth literally have a bigger hippocampus than that part of the brain responsible for navigation, and this is bigger than the norm. What about mediators who practice gratitude physically reshape their brains to be happier and less stressed? Like me, I'm manifesting mud right at the moment, and it's working. Oh, and what about athletes who visualize their training, improve their performance, even if they never physically practice a move? It's crazy. So, if you constantly focus on stress and failure, well done, congratulations, you're giving your brain a workout it really doesn't need. But if you train your brain to focus on solutions, opportunities, and gratitude, that's really important, guess what? Your brain starts making that your default setting. Your brain works the same way as your body. If you work out, your muscles get stronger. If you sit around watching Netflix all day, well, your couch, the dent in your couch gets bigger. So, here's a question for you. What are you going to train your brain to be good at? If you're always worrying, your brain gets better at worrying. If you always accept the worst, your brain will literally rewrite itself to find problems before they even exist. But if you train your brain to focus on opportunities, your brain starts actively searching for solutions, even when you're not paying attention. Before you roll your eyes and say, oh great, another self-help cliche, let me remind you, Batman literally trained himself to become Batman. Sure, he had billions of dollars, but the real superpower was his ability to train his mind. If Bruce Wayne had spent his time doom scrolling and overthinking, Gotham would have been screwed. So, science. Let's talk science, shall we? MRI scans show that people who practice meditation and gratitude actually have physical changes in their brain. Less activity in the, the I can't think of this word, amygdala. It basically controls fear and stress. And more activity and they also have more activity in the prefrontal cortex, which controls rational thinking and decision making. So, meditation really does help. This means that people who regularly practice gratitude literally rewire their brains to be less stressed and more focused. Try it yourself. And before you say, yeah, but I'm just naturally obnoxious, let me introduce you to Epictetus, that ancient Stoic philosopher who basically said, you become what you give your attention to. In other words, your brain is like an algorithm. Keep clicking on negative thoughts and it will flood your mental feed flood your mental feed with more of them. But if you start engaging with positive thoughts, your brain will start prioritizing those instead. I'm going to focus on turning around and going back. I think I've walked an awful long way. Alright, how do we actually use this? There's 3 simple ways to start rewiring your brain today. Start noticing your number 1, start noticing your mental habits. Are you training your brain to find problems or solutions? Start just pay attention. You might be surprised. Number 2, use those affirmations. Remember what we talked about earlier? Instead of saying, I'm always stressed, ask yourself, why am I getting better at handling challenges? Your brain's going to start looking for answers. And lastly, number 3, probably the most important one. Practice gratitude. Yeah, really. I know. It sounds cheesy, doesn't it? But just listing three things you're grateful for every day can start rewiring your brain for positivity. And if you can do 3, do 4. If you can do 4, do 10. If it's good enough for neuroscientists, it's good enough for you. So another challenge for you. Next 24 hours, notice where your mental energy goes. Might you train your brain for stress or success? Sounds like something that should be on a t-shirt. And if you really want to test this, try visualizing something you want. An opportunity, a solution, maybe even a new skill. So whether you like it or not, your brain is always rewiring itself. You might be stuck here. Where was I? You might as well be the one holding the blueprint. I'm going to try and rewire my brain so my mouth can actually wrap its lips around words. Alright, at this point you might be thinking, this all sounds great in theory, but do actual successful people really use this stuff? Or is this just another self-help gimmick? Let's talk about some real-world example. People who didn't just hope for success, but trained their minds to create it. And spoiler alert, it worked. You know, back in the early 90s, that good old guy Jim Carrey was a struggling actor. What did he do? True story, you can see this on YouTube. He wrote himself a check for 10 million for acting services rendered and dated it for Thanksgiving 1995, and he carried that thing in his wallet and visualized himself receiving that exact amount every single day. Now, was this a ridiculous thing to do? Absolutely. Did people probably think he'd lost the plot? Most likely. But here's the punchline. In 1994, he landed a role in Dumb and Dumber. And guess how much he got paid? Yep, 10 million. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe, just maybe, he trained his brain to focus on opportunities, worked relentlessly, and refused to accept anything else. You decide. Then there's Oprah. Now, regardless of whether you love her or find her a bit much, you can't argue with her results. She grew up in extreme poverty, faced incredible hardships, and yet somehow became one of the most influential and successful people on the planet. How? She credits a huge part of her success on visualization and mindset. Oprah has repeatedly said that she believed herself into success, training her mind to focus on abundance instead of scarcity. She calls it laws of attraction, but we could also call it not letting self-doubt wreck your life. I like laws of attraction. Considering she went from not having running water. Can you believe that? She had no running water. She went from that to being worth billions. It might be worth listening to her on this one. Now, if you're still skeptical, let's talk about something science definitely backs up. Mental rehearsal in sports. Studies show that athletes who mentally rehearse their game, just picturing themselves performing at their best, actually improve their performance, even if they don't physically practice, although that has proven to help as well. In one study, basketball players who just visualized free throws improved almost as much as those who physically practice. That's right. Thinking about shooting hoops actually made them better at shooting hoops. So the next time someone tells you that mindset doesn't matter, remind them that Olympic athletes are literally winning medals using this exact principle. And do you know the wildest part? Your brain doesn't actually know the difference between reality and imagination. When you vividly picture something, your brain fires the same neurons as if you were actually doing it. Crazy, huh? So if you constantly picture yourself succeeding, your brain starts treating that as normal. But if you constantly picture failure, well, guess what? It'll make sure you find plenty of ways to fail. Or, as the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius put it, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. In other words, keep telling yourself you're doomed, and shocker, you're going to be right. So, what's the takeaway here? 1. Your mind is ridiculously powerful. Use it wisely. If Jim Carrey can manifest a 10 million check, surely you can visualize getting that promotion of starting that business. Number 2, act like it's already happening. Oprah Winfrey didn't wait for someone to approve her success. She trained herself to see it before it existed. The more you think about success, the more your brain starts making it a reality. And number 3, mental rehearsals. It's not just for athletes, you know. Try it. Before an important event, take a few minutes to picture yourself handling it perfectly. Your brain will literally believe you've already done it, making it far likely that you'll actually perform well. Now, try those things. If some of the most successful people on the planet use this method, what's stopping you? For the next week, try this. Spend 2 minutes a day visualizing your success, whether it's in work, fitness, relationships, or something else. See yourself actually achieving it. Do it every day for 2 minutes. Act as if it's already happening. Worst case scenario, nothing happens, and you wasted 2 minutes a day. Best case, you've just rewired your brain for success. Either way, beats doom scrolling. I can hardly say that word. Doom scrolling. Alright, I know we've covered a lot. We've looked at how some of the world's most successful people, Jim Carrey, Oprah Winfrey, top athletes, have used focus and visualization to shape their reality. But now, let's address the elephant in the room. What if you're still skeptical? What if you're sitting there thinking, well, that's all very inspirational, but I'm not Jim Carrey. I'm not a billionaire, a billionaire talk show host, and I haven't won an Olympic medal. So how does this really apply to me? And you've got a fair point. But instead of just taking my word about it, let's do something radical, shall we? Let's actually test it. For the next 24 hours, I know we've got a lot to do this 24 hours in this week. For the next 24 hours, I want you to become an observer, a detective of your own reality. And no, you don't need a pipe and a deerstalker hat, or Benedict Cumberbatch's level of intellect. All I want you to do is pick one thing, just one positive thing to focus on. Could be kindness. Notice moments of generosity, people being helpful, or even a stranger holding the door open. Focus on opportunities. Look for unexpected chances that come your way, whether big or small. Focus on a specific colour. Let's say you choose red. Suddenly, you might start spotting red cars, red signs, red shirts, things you've never paid attention to. Like literally now I'm walking in a field of beautiful green, and as I said about red, someone's thrown a red case into a stream. Let me see if I can show you. See if you can see it. Oop. Not from here, it's a bit too far away, but I'll get closer to it. So, or why not focus on a particular word? Oh, let's just press that thing. Choose a random word and watch how often it pops up in conversations, TV shows, or even on social media. I have it happen to me so many times, all these things. And once you start noticing it, it happens even more. And proof of the red thing, see if I get a bit closer now. Go down. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Crazy, huh? What's next? Why does that happen? Have you ever noticed how after you start thinking about buying a certain car, suddenly you see that car everywhere? Did the universe just place 1,000 extra Teslas on the road just for you? Not quite. It's called the Reticular Activating System, RAS. Fancy way of saying that your brain filters the world based on what you tell it is important. Your mind is bombarded with 11 million bits of information per second, but your conscious brain can only process about 40. That means that most of reality is blurred out. But when you... Oh, 1 second. Sorry, my phone went off. Where was I? Your brain only processes about 40. That means that most of reality is blurred out. When you give your brain a focus, hey, look for kindness, or hey, spot the colour red, it suddenly sharpens the lens, filtering in what was always there but was ignored. In other words, what you notice in life was always there and you just weren't trained to see it yet. Now, if you're familiar with Neville Goddard, you'll know he spent his life teaching that imagination creates reality. He argued that what you consistently assume and feel to be true will, in time, harden into fact. This little experiment is basically Neville Goddard's light. It's a way of showing you in real time that the act of placing your attention on something shapes your experience. Goddard would say, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. But before we get into life-changing manifestations, let's start small, just by proving it to yourself that what you focus on expands. So try the challenges in this video, and if you're thinking this sounds like nonsense, perfect. That's exactly why you should start them and test them. Before we wrap it up, let's return to a bit of ancient wisdom of the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor who had quite a lot on his plate: wars, plagues, running an empire. He once said, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. What does he mean? You don't need more money, more success, or a perfect life to start feeling better. You just need to choose where your mind goes, because what you focus on grows. So, what are you focusing on? If you found this video helpful, go ahead, hit that like button. Or don't. Maybe the YouTube algorithm will just manifest views for me just out of sheer goodwill. And if you want more content of mindset, manifestation, and the subtle art of not letting your own thoughts sabotage you, subscribe. Your future self will thank you. Now, go out there, test this, and let me know what you find. Worst case, you just paid attention for a day. Worst case, you realise you've had way more control over your reality this whole time. Before we wrap it up, I want to leave you with a little teaser for our next video. I'm getting tired. I don't know about you. Next time we'll be diving into the mind-bending question, what is now? We'll change everything you thought you knew about time. Because, spoiler alert, it might not be as real as you think. So, if you're ready to have your mind twisted even further, do hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell thing on so you don't miss it. And hey, if you join this journey through the mysteries of the universe, grab a coffee. I'll have one too, please. Sit back, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. It's been a lot, I know. And I'll see you in the next one. Love you guys, and I do miss you.